What if I told you there's a way to slip into someone's dreams, not with magic, but with science? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, uncovered how the subconscious mind communicates through dreams. And if you understand his methods, you can plant yourself in his thoughts, even while he sleeps. Imagine this. You go to bed tonight, and miles away, he dreams of you. Not by chance, but because you triggered something deep in his psyche. Sounds impossible? Jung proved it isn't. Stay until the end. I'll show you the exact technique he'd endorse. Dreams aren't random. They're conversations with the subconscious, shaped by symbols, emotions, and hidden desires. Carl Jung spent his life decoding this language, and what he discovered was groundbreaking. Our minds are all subtly connected through what he called the collective unconscious, a shared library of human experiences. That means certain images, feelings, and memories have universal power. And if you use them the right way, you can leave an imprint on someone's mind before they even close their eyes. But here's the key. It's not about control. It's about resonance. Jung's research reveals how to align with the subconscious patterns that naturally draw people together, in waking life and in dreams. So if you've ever wanted to linger in his thoughts long after you say goodnight, this is how. The connection between our waking emotions and dream content isn't just mystical speculation, it's grounded in rigorous neuroscience. When we experience strong emotions before sleep, they create what researchers call emotional imprints that reverberate through our sleeping minds. This happens because the brain doesn't simply shut off when we close our eyes. Instead, it enters a hyperactive state of processing and reorganization. The amygdala, our emotional center, remains particularly engaged during REM sleep, which is why feelings from our day often transform into dream imagery. Studies using fMRI scans show that when people go to sleep shortly after emotional experiences, their dreams are far more likely to incorporate related themes, symbols, or people. This explains why arguments before bed lead to stressful dreams, or why thinking about a romantic interest might manifest them in your dreamscape. The process of memory consolidation during sleep provides even more insight into how this works. As we sleep, our brains don't just passively store memories, they actively prioritize, strengthen, and sometimes even rewrite them. The hippocampus, our memory center, replays daily experiences at nearly 20 times the speed of waking life, essentially curating which memories get preserved in long-term storage. Emotional memories receive special treatment in this process because they're tagged as biologically significant. Research from the University of Massachusetts Sleep Lab demonstrated that when participants viewed emotionally charged images before bed, those images appeared in their dreams 75% more often than neutral ones. This explains the old saying, never go to bed angry, not just for relationship harmony, but because those negative emotions will literally shape your dreams. This memory consolidation process follows predictable patterns that we can actually harness. The brain tends to fixate on the last significant thoughts before sleep, what psychologists call the recency effect, in dream formation. A University of Zurich study found that participants who spent 10 minutes before bed focusing on a specific person were 3 times more likely to dream about them compared to control groups. Even more fascinating, the emotional quality of those waking thoughts directly influenced how the person appeared in dreams. Positive focus led to pleasant dream interactions, while anxious thoughts created tension in the dream narrative. This creates a compelling case for carefully choosing your final thoughts each night. They don't just disappear when you fall asleep, they amplify. The implications for relationships and attraction are profound. When you occupy someone's final waking thoughts, especially with emotional resonance, you're essentially giving your brain's nocturnal processing systems a clear directive. It's not mind control, it's working with natural neurological processes. The combination of emotional salience and temporal proximity to sleep creates ideal conditions for dream incorporation. This explains why people often dream about those they have unresolved feelings for, or why thinking about someone right before sleep makes them more likely to appear in dreams. The brain treats these thoughts as important emotional business that needs further processing during sleep. Modern sleep science has even identified specific neurotransmitters that facilitate this dream incorporation. Acetylcholine, which floods the brain during REM sleep, enhances emotionally tagged memories while suppressing neutral ones. Meanwhile, stress hormones like cortisol can actually block certain memories from being processed. This neurochemical environment creates perfect conditions for emotionally significant people and experiences to dominate our dreamscapes. When you understand that the sleeping brain chemically prioritizes emotional content, the idea of appearing in someone's dreams moves from fantasy to plausible psychological phenomenon. The duration and quality of sleep also play crucial roles in this process. Studies show that most dream incorporation happens during the final REM cycles of the night, typically in the early morning hours. This is when emotional memory processing peaks, and why people who wake up naturally, rather than to alarms, often remember more dreams. The longer and more undisturbed the sleep, the more opportunity there is for the brain to weave waking thoughts into dream narratives. This explains why people report especially vivid dreams about loved ones after nights of deep, restful sleep. Their brains had optimal conditions for emotional processing. Cultural wisdom has intuitively understood this connection for centuries. The ancient Greek practice of dream incubation involved sleeping in temples after focusing intensely on specific questions or desires. Indigenous dream traditions often incorporate evening rituals to guide dream content. Even modern psychology recognizes the dream rebound effect, where suppressing thoughts during the day makes them more likely to appear in dreams. All of these phenomena point to the same truth. What we focus on before sleep doesn't vanish, it transforms. When applied to relationships, this science suggests powerful possibilities. By becoming someone's last emotionally significant thought before sleep, you're effectively giving the sleeping brain material to work with. The combination of memory consolidation, emotional salience, and neurochemical prioritization creates ideal conditions for dream appearances. This isn't about supernatural influence. It's about understanding and aligning with the brain's natural nocturnal processes. When you occupy that psychological sweet spot of emotional relevance and temporal proximity to sleep, appearing in someone's dreams becomes less a matter of chance and more a predictable outcome of how human minds process meaningful connections. The first step in this Jungian approach involves symbolic visualization, a technique rooted in the understanding that dreams communicate through images rather than words. When preparing for sleep, take a few moments to clearly visualize a symbol that carries personal significance between you and the person you wish to appear to in dreams. This could be an object like a specific flower you once received, a piece of jewelry you often wear, or even a shared memory represented visually, perhaps a sunset you watch together or a place that holds meaning for both of you. The power lies not just in seeing this image in your mind's eye, but in imbuing it with emotional resonance. As you visualize, imagine this symbol glowing with energy, as if it contains the essence of your connection. Jung discovered that such charged symbols act as psychological bridges between conscious and unconscious realms, making them perfect vehicles for dream communication. The more vividly you can picture this symbol while feeling its emotional weight, the more likely it is to surface in the dreamer's subconscious processing during sleep. Building upon this symbolic foundation, the second step involves emotional anchoring, a process that ties your presence to specific emotional experiences. Before sleep, deliberately recall a moment when you and this person shared genuine emotional connection. It could be an instance of uncontrollable laughter, a meaningful conversation, or even a simple but charged touch. The key is to select a memory that carries authentic emotional weight for both of you. As you revisit this memory, allow yourself to fully experience the emotions again, the warmth, the excitement, the sense of connection. Neuroscience research shows that emotions act as a kind of psychological adhesive, making associated memories and people more likely to appear in dreams. This works because the sleeping brain prioritizes emotionally tagged memories during its nocturnal processing. By reactivating these shared emotional experiences right before sleep, you're essentially placing yourself at the forefront of the dreamer's subconscious mind, where these feelings will naturally seek expression through dream imagery. The final and most profound step involves making an archetypal connection. Jung identified certain universal patterns, the lover, the caregiver, the sage, that exist in all human psyches across cultures. These archetypes represent fundamental human experiences and relationships that resonate at the deepest levels of consciousness. To employ this step, consider which archetype best represents the quality of your connection with this person. If your relationship has romantic elements, focus on the lover archetype. If it's nurturing, the caregiver. If it's about guidance or inspiration, perhaps the sage. As you prepare for sleep, hold in your mind not just the person, but the essence of what you represent to them at this archetypal level. This doesn't require complex analysis. Simply feeling into the core energy of your connection will activate these universal patterns. When you combine this archetypal resonance with a specific symbol and emotional memory from the previous steps, you create a powerful three-layered impression that naturally weaves itself into the fabric of dreams. What makes this method particularly effective is how it works with rather than against natural psychological processes. The symbolic visualization speaks to the dream language of the unconscious. The emotional anchoring ensures your presence gets prioritized in memory consolidation. The archetypal connection taps into universal patterns that give your image deeper meaning and staying power in the psyche. Together, they form a complete approach that addresses how dreams actually form through the interplay of personal symbols, emotional charges, and fundamental human patterns of relating. The timing of this practice matters significantly. Performing these steps during the hypnagogic state, that twilight zone between waking and sleeping, increases their effectiveness. This is when the critical faculties of the conscious mind begin to relax, allowing easier access to the subconscious. Many people find it helpful to go through the 3 steps as they're lying in bed with eyes closed, transitioning naturally from focused visualization into sleep. The process shouldn't feel forced or stressful. It works best when approached with a sense of gentle focus and emotional authenticity. Consistency also plays a role in strengthening this connection. Just as repeating a memory during waking hours helps consolidate it, regularly practicing these steps before sleep increases the likelihood of dream appearances. This doesn't mean obsessively focusing on the person all day. In fact, that can have the opposite effect by creating psychological resistance. Instead, it's about creating a focused, meaningful pre-sleep ritual that naturally guides the subconscious toward this particular connection during its nightly processing. Understanding the psychological mechanisms behind each step helps refine the practice. The symbolic visualization works because the dreaming mind thinks in images rather than words. The emotional anchoring is effective due to the amygdala's role in tagging important memories for dream processing. The archetypal connection taps into what Jung called the collective unconscious, those deep layers of psyche we all share. When you combine these elements, you're not trying to force someone to dream about you, but rather aligning yourself with the natural processes of how dreams form and how connections manifest in the subconscious. The beauty of this method lies in its psychological integrity. It doesn't promise to override free will or create artificial attachments. Instead, it works with the natural tendency of the mind to process significant relationships and emotions during sleep. When someone already has feelings, whether conscious or subconscious, for you, these steps simply increase the probability that those feelings will find expression in dreams. The more authentic the connection and the more sincerely you approach the practice, the more powerful the results tend to be. Ultimately, this three-step method represents a practical application of Jung's profound insights into how the human psyche operates, both in waking life and during sleep. By understanding and working with these psychological principles rather than against them, you create the optimal conditions for appearing in someone's dreams in a way that feels meaningful, authentic, and aligned with how consciousness naturally functions. The practice becomes not just about influencing dreams, but about deepening your understanding of the invisible threads that connect human minds and hearts across both waking and dreaming realities. The power of these Jungian principles comes alive when we examine how they've worked in real relationships. Consider Sarah, a graphic designer who had been casually dating a musician for several months. Though they had strong chemistry, his touring schedule often left her wondering if he thought about her when they were apart. After learning about symbolic visualization, Sarah began focusing each night on a specific memory, the time they had spontaneously danced together in her kitchen to his favorite song. She would visualize the scene vividly, recalling how his hands felt on her waist and the way they had both laughed when they stumbled. 3 nights into this practice, she received a text from him saying, "You popped up in my dream last night. We were back in your kitchen, but the walls were covered in swirling colors." The emotional anchor of that joyful memory, combined with her creative visualization, had naturally surfaced in his subconscious. Another striking example comes from Mark, who had lost touch with a college friend he secretly admired for years. When he heard she was moving back to their hometown, he began using the archetypal connection method before bed. Knowing she had always valued deep conversations, he focused on the sage archetype, visualizing himself as someone who brought wisdom and insight to her life. He combined this with recalling their most meaningful discussion about life purpose during a late-night campus walk. Within a week, the friend reached out unexpectedly, mentioning she'd been thinking about that exact conversation lately. While not a direct dream report, the synchronization of their thoughts suggests his focused intention had created a subtle psychic link. The case of Elena and Daniel demonstrates how even lighthearted symbols can create powerful dream connections. They shared an inside joke about penguins after a memorable zoo date. When their work schedules kept them apart for weeks, Elena began visualizing penguins wearing little hats, their specific joke, right before sleep. She'd recall the uncontrollable laughter they'd shared that day, emotionally anchoring the whimsical image. 2 days later, Daniel texted her a picture of a penguin stuffed animal with the caption, "This weirdly made me think of you, had a dream you were teaching penguins to tap dance." The specificity of the imagery showed how precisely symbolic communication can work through dreams when tied to genuine shared experiences. A more profound example comes from James, who was trying to reconnect with his estranged father. Each night, he would visualize his father's old watch, a meaningful symbol as it had been passed down generations, while recalling a rare moment of childhood approval when his father had praised his drawing. James combined this with the caregiver archetype, focusing on the nurturing potential in their relationship. After 3 weeks of consistent practice, his father called unexpectedly, saying he'd been having recurring dreams about teaching young James to draw. This led to their first meaningful conversation in years, showing how these methods can sometimes heal even fractured connections when applied with sincere intention. The workplace isn't immune to these dynamics either. Maya, an entrepreneur, needed to make a strong impression on a potential investor. Before their crucial meeting, she spent a week visualizing the investor's distinctive brooch. Noticing details creates stronger symbolic connections, while recalling the excitement of her very first successful project. She aligned this with the creator archetype during her pre-sleep visualization. In their meeting, the investor unexpectedly said Maya's pitch reminded her of her own early career dreams, a clear resonance with the archetypal energy Maya had been projecting. While not a traditional romantic connection, this demonstrates how these principles apply to any relationship where psychological influence matters. Some of the most convincing applications come from long-distance relationships. Take Priya and Alex, separated by continents during lockdowns. Priya began focusing on the scent of Alex's cologne, a powerful sensory symbol, while recalling their emotional airport goodbye. She incorporated the lover archetype into her nightly routine. After several days, Alex reported unusually vivid dreams of holding her, specifically mentioning how real her scent seemed in the dream. The sensory specificity proved how effectively concrete details combine with emotional anchors to bridge physical distance in dreams. Even unrequited connections respond to these methods when there's genuine emotional substrate. Clara had quietly loved her best friend for years. She began visualizing their hands nearly touching during a roller coaster ride, a moment charged with unspoken tension, while focusing on the maiden archetype's innocent potential. Though she never spoke of her feelings, her friends soon began having dreams Clara described as weirdly intense versions of our hangouts that left him contemplating their relationship differently. This subtle shift demonstrates how dream work can sometimes reveal subconscious attractions that daytime interactions conceal. What these stories collectively reveal is that the method works best when three elements align: a personally meaningful symbol, authentic emotional resonance, and archetypal relevance to the relationship's nature. The examples show varying degrees of directness in results, from exact dream manifestations to more subtle synchronizations in waking thoughts and behaviors. This spectrum reflects how the unconscious mind processes these influences differently based on the existing relationship dynamics and individual psychology. The most successful cases share common traits. The symbols were highly specific, not generic roses or hearts. The emotional memories were genuinely significant, not manufactured, and the archetypal connections fit the relationship's true nature, not wishful projections. When people tried to force connections that didn't exist or use symbols without personal meaning, results were far less impressive or non-existent. This underscores that the technique amplifies existing psychological bonds rather than creating artificial ones. These real-world applications prove that Jung's theories about the collective unconscious and dream symbolism aren't just academic concepts. They're practical tools for understanding and sometimes gently influencing how connections manifest in that mysterious space between conscious and unconscious minds. Whether rekindling old flames, deepening current relationships, or exploring potential new connections, these stories demonstrate that our dreaming minds are far more interconnected with our waking relationships than we typically realize. Before exploring this method further, we must address the ethical dimension of influencing another's dreams. Dreams represent one of our most private psychological spaces, where our unconscious mind processes experiences free from social constraints or conscious censorship. To enter this realm intentionally, even with positive intentions, carries a certain responsibility. Think of it like visiting someone's home uninvited. Even if you bring gifts, the act itself requires careful consideration. The most important guideline is examining your motives. Are you hoping to nurture an existing connection, or attempting to manipulate feelings that don't organically exist? Dreams respond most powerfully to genuine emotional bonds, not fabricated ones. There's also an ethical difference between occasionally appearing in the dreams of someone you share mutual affection with versus persistently invading the dream space of someone who has shown clear disinterest. Respect for psychological boundaries matters as much in the unconscious realm as in waking life. That said, when applied with integrity, This practice can actually deepen authentic connections in beautiful ways. Many couples report feeling more emotionally attuned after discovering they've appeared in each other's dreams naturally. Some therapists even use dream sharing as a tool to help partners understand each other's inner worlds better. The key distinction lies in whether you're enhancing something real or trying to create an illusion. If your intentions align with fostering genuine connection rather than control, you're likely operating within an ethical framework Jung would approve of. Remember that dreams ultimately serve the dreamer's psychological needs. You might appear as a symbol representing something beyond just yourself, and that interpretation belongs solely to the dreamer. Now, how can you tell if your efforts have been successful? The most obvious sign is if the person mentions dreaming about you spontaneously. But since many people don't share their dreams routinely, there are subtler indicators to watch for. You might notice them bringing up shared memories more often, especially ones connected to the symbols or emotions you've focused on. Some people experience a sense of déjà vu when encountering elements you visualized. They might comment that something feels familiar without knowing why. Changes in their behavior toward you can also signal subconscious influence. Perhaps they initiate contact more, seem more emotionally open, or reference topics connected to your pre-sleep visualizations. Pay attention to indirect dream references too. Statements like, "I slept really deeply last night," or "I had the strangest dream," often precede revelations about dream content. If they mention unusual symbols that resonate with what you visualized, even if you don't appear directly in the reported dream, this suggests your efforts reached their subconscious. Some people experience increased synchronicities after consistent practice. You think of them just as they text, or discover they visited a place you'd visualized. These meaningful coincidences often indicate a deepening of the subtle connection between your psyches. Timing provides another clue. Dreams most commonly reflect experiences from the previous 1 to 3 days, so effects typically appear within this window. If practicing consistently for a week produces no noticeable changes, either in their dream reports or waking behavior, it may indicate insufficient emotional resonance to penetrate their subconscious. This doesn't necessarily mean the method failed, but rather that their psyche isn't currently primed to process your connection in this way. Forcing it further would cross into unethical territory. For those wanting to test the method scientifically, keep a dream journal tracking your visualization practices and any subsequent reports from the person. Over time, patterns may emerge showing which symbols or emotional anchors prove most effective. Some find that certain moon phases or days of the week yield stronger results, possibly due to natural variations in sleep depth and dream recall. The most convincing validations often come unexpectedly, when someone describes a dream scenario matching your visualizations with uncanny accuracy, especially regarding specific details you couldn't have known otherwise. A few final tips can enhance your practice while maintaining ethical integrity. First, quality matters more than quantity. One vivid, emotionally authentic visualization often proves more effective than multiple forced attempts. Morning dreams, during late REM cycles, tend to incorporate recent thoughts most clearly, so timing your practice before longer sleep periods helps. Combining this method with meditation can increase focus, but avoid doing it when emotionally distraught, as intense negative energy can backfire in dreams. If pursuing a romantic connection, balance dream work with genuine waking relationship building. Dreams should complement real-world connection, not replace it. Interestingly, many report that as they practice these methods ethically, they become more attuned to when others might be unconsciously influencing their own dreams. You might wake from a dream about someone and realize they likely been thinking about you recently. This reciprocal awareness underscores how deeply interconnected our psyches truly are. Ultimately, approaching dream influence with respect, patience, and emotional honesty yields the most meaningful results, not just in appearing in someone's dreams, but in understanding the profound, invisible threads that connect all human minds across both waking and dreaming realities. Now it's your turn to put this powerful method to the test. For the next 3 nights, commit to trying this Jungian technique before bed. Start with just 5 to 10 minutes each evening. Visualize your meaningful symbol, anchor it with genuine emotion, and connect to the appropriate archetype. Then pay close attention to any shifts in your connection with this person. Did they mention dreaming about you? Reach out unexpectedly? Seem different in conversation? Share your experiences in the comments below. I read every single one and would love to hear how this worked for you. Your real-life results help all of us understand these psychological principles better. If you found this exploration of dreams and attraction fascinating, you're going to love what's coming next. We'll be diving deeper into Jungian psychology with techniques for synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, and how to recognize when the universe might be sending you signs about a relationship. Make sure to hit that like button if this resonated with you. It helps me create more content like this. And subscribe so you don't miss our next journey into psychology-based attraction. Who knows? The next video might just reveal why you've been thinking about that certain person so often lately. Until then, sweet dreams, and may your subconscious connections blossom in beautiful ways. Remember, the most profound psychological tools are meant to be used with care, intention, and respect. When you approach these methods with integrity, you're not just learning how to appear in someone's dreams, you're uncovering the deeper mysteries of human connection itself. So try it out, stay curious, and let me know what you discover. Your dream journey starts tonight.